Alright goblins, welcome back. We've got the wicked Kawasaki ZX-9R. Some of you may recognise this spot as the spot where I dropped it in a previous video. Not sure when that video is going to come out yet, but definitely go and check that one out if you want to know how to pick up a motorcycle off the ground. It's a very good instructional video on just how to do it, just in case the worst of the worst happens to you, and it probably will. Alright, so definitely go and check that one out so you've got a good point of reference on how to pick up a motorcycle off the ground, especially one that is a little bit heavier. Alright, so recently I did a video on the Wifey's Ninja 125 about braking techniques that you were never taught, and these are things that techniques that I use every single day whenever I'm out on a motorcycle, whenever I'm out riding. But a viewer left a comment about basically, they kind of stated that I ignored the rear brake entirely, and I kind of did, in a sense. I should have been a bit more specific about what the rear brake is for in that video, but it was all about stopping the motorcycle. It wasn't about slow speed maneuvers or anything like that. It was about stopping the motorcycle, and to do that, well, you're going to be using your front brakes pretty much 100% of the time to slow yourself down. I mean, it just stands to reason. Look at the size of the calipers, look at the size of the rotors compared to the one on the rear, and you've got two of them on the front wheel as well. But that kind of led me to a train of thought, which I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not yet, but we're going to find out in today's videos whether or not you can do all your slowing down using just the rear brake. Alright, so I'm going to try throughout this entire video riding the motorcycle as I normally would, but only using the rear brake to slow myself down, including engine braking and all that good stuff as well. But can it be done? How good is the rear brake at stopping you or slowing you down? I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but hey, let's find out. Took a little bit of extra persuasion there to get the bike going. Alright. I really don't know how this is going to go, because best practice, and well, the only practice you should preach or should use whenever you're riding a motorcycle, is rely on your front brake to slow you down and stop you. Alright. The main purpose of the front brake is to stop you. The main purpose of the rear brake is for slow speed maneuvers. You get the whole like 70-30 front rear brake being thrown around, and it's not true for the most part. When you are trying to slow yourself down, you are using almost all of the braking force from the front brake to stop you. The rear brake, because what happens is that as the bike is moving forward, this is the front end of the bike, you apply the front brake, the back end of the bike is going to lift up like that, so the tyre doesn't have any pressure on it. And of course, when a tyre doesn't have any pressure, any weight on it to compress it, as soon as you apply a brake, it's just going to lock up. So a rear brake under heavy braking doesn't actually do an awful lot. If anything, it's worse. It's a worse thing to do, because then you end up going into a bit of a back in, and you've got to use your hips and your legs then to try and control the back end of the motorcycle. I mean, that's if you keep your foot planted on the rear brake, of course, but you know, whenever you're braking hard, it is so easy to panic. And so a lot of the time, learners, they get taught this 70-30 thing, so they think that they have to apply the rear brake, but you really don't know how much 30% of rear brake actually is, so you may find yourself giving it way too much rear brake and you lose control of the back end of the bike. Alright, so we'll start our little experiment now. Let's take a right. Okay, so pretty good under those slow speeds. I mean, I don't really expect it to get any better. I'm going to try and do the speed limit on these roads, or at least I'm going to try riding normally anyway, as normally as I would. And we'll see if the rear brake at all gives me any trouble. I'm 50-50 expecting the rear brake to lock up a little bit under some of the harder braking. So we'll see. So So just under 50 mile an hour. I'm going to start slowing myself down now. Give myself as much time as possible to stop. To be honest, the rear brake on this motorcycle is pretty good so far. I am impressed. So that's okay. Yeah, I gave it a little bit more there, a little bit quicker, a little bit harder braking on the rear. I mean, engine braking is going to do an awful lot, I think, for me as well on this ride, so we'll see. But that's the thing, guys, on the hard braking, the rear brake is only going to help you so much. Alright, yes, it's the bigger tyre, but if there's no pressure on the tyre, no weight on the tyre, then there's only so much that it can do for you. I mean, well, I'll try and demonstrate a little bit further right when we've got a bit of a straight and there's no traffic coming towards us. And I'll just show you what it's like when you just 100% give it to the rear brake, because it's not fun. It's really not fun. I mean, that's exactly how you, well, yeah, leave skid marks, so to speak. I was going to do it here, but there's someone behind us. Maybe this road isn't as quiet as I thought it would be for our little experiment today. Right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to let them go past. Again, that was all rear brake right there. Alright. Okay, so let's get up to the speed limit, 40 mile an hour on this particular piece of road. Alright, there's no one behind me, so I'm just gonna punch it. Here we go. Woo! Okay. The back end went like that. It probably couldn't see it on camera because I didn't really want to hold that for very long, but that means that you aren't in control of the motorcycle as much as you should be. Even though controlling a rear skid, a rear lockup is a fairly straightforward affair, it still isn't great when it happens to you. Now, I do apologise in advance if I do end up using the front brake for anything. I think I did back there, didn't I? I can't even remember. It's such a habit for me just to automatically jump on the front brake whenever I'm trying to slow myself down. But so, I mean, if I have to do an emergency brake, basically I've got no chance. After that little experiment just there, trying to slow myself down from 40 mile an hour, it had a split second of grip, and then all of a sudden it just locked itself up. So yeah, not great for emergency braking. But so far, I think what I will say is that if you're doing slow speed riding around town, you know, in an urban environment, suburban environment, something like that, then actually using the rear brake might be feasible. Almost exclusively using the rear brake might be feasible. Not recommended, but it might be feasible. And as well, whenever you're going into corners and or into bends rather, you're going into them pretty fast, and you don't know if you're going to be able to make the bend, then that's when you use a little bit of rear brake there to try and slow yourself down just a little bit more to give you a helping hand. Because you can use the rear brake as you're going into a bend, and you can pretty much hold it there until you see the exit of the bend, and then you can start accelerating. So it does have its uses. The rear brake does have its uses when it comes to slowing yourself down whilst you're riding, but of course it stands to reason it's not going to be as effective as the front, because all the weight is transitioning over to the front wheel, over that suspension. All the weight is moving towards that front wheel. You're going to get a lot more stopping power from the front brakes than you are on the rear brakes. Stands to reason why the front brakes and rotors are so much bigger and more powerful than the rear. But I am going to caveat this a little bit. This ZX-9R is about 200 kilograms wet. That's not very heavy for a motorcycle, so your mileage may vary on this front, if you've got a much heavier motorcycle, it might be better, it might be worse. Same token goes if you've got a motorcycle that is lighter than this. You might have a better reaction to using your rear brake, more so, or you might have a worse reaction. I don't know. Your mileage may vary, but that's why I thought I'd do this little experiment. You see me there cheating a little bit using my using my engine braking there. So the only thing is about using the rear brake is you've got to make sure that you stop and put your foot down on the left hand side of the bike. Because otherwise you're falling over. Hey, naughty, naughty. Jumping out in front of oncoming traffic, that's not a good idea. Well, so far I am pleasantly surprised. Alright, oh, those are nice bikes. 2 Yamahas, I think. Yamaha MTs. I mean, I only caught a glimpse of them, but I mean, this is a 24-year-old motorcycle as well, a 24-year-old braking system. So it's not going to be quite as good as some of the more modern ABS brake systems that you get these days. But then again, I'm not entirely sure whether or not all motorcycles have ABS on the rear brake. I'm pretty sure on the wife's Ninja 125, she's got ABS on the front wheel, but no ABS on the rear. And I know that because when I've done certain drills on that motorcycle before, I was doing emergency braking and I was using a little bit of the rear brake as I was braking, and it skidded. Under hard braking, it skidded quite badly. It didn't do the whole like pulsating thing that ABS brakes usually do to help you get more grip under hard braking. Woo! Oh, this is a fun motorcycle to ride. Yeah, guys, I'm trying to ride it like I normally would. I'm not trying to ride any differently. But as I'm getting a bit more confident in using that rear brake, it's becoming a little bit more natural to use to slow me down. I'm doing a little bit over the speed limit here, so slow myself down. Ah, sorry, I wouldn't normally do the speed limit on this road anyway, so let's just 100% it, shall we? But I'm going to start slowing down here because there's a car looking to turn in. Only the rear brake. Only the rear brake. That's all I'm using. That's all I'm using. This is where the I'm going to need a whole new brake pad now. Brake pad set for the rear brake, aren't I? Oh, it's struggling there a little bit. I wonder if I'm getting a little bit of brake fade from a little bit of heat. That's a nice bike. Is that ZX-9R, I think? I don't even know. Very nice, whatever it was. Alright, let's take a left here. Okay. Okay, it's actually slowing me down well in advance of kind of my anticipation of where I'm going to stop. Not bad, not bad. But even in this kind of traffic here as well, start and go traffic, because my habit as well is to use the front brake whenever I'm in stop and go traffic, and I should be using the rear brake. Whee! See, I knew someone was going to do that. As soon as I went round that bend, I started putting on the brake a little bit, slowing down. I knew someone was going to do that. Just move out into the road. Move out into my lane. Oh yeah, of course, you dickhead. Yeah, almost could get someone killed doing that, and oh dear. Wow, traffic is heavy around here today. Now, of course, this is something else that you should be using the rear brake for, is filtering. Again, I've got a habit of using the front brake, but whenever you're doing slow speed stuff, using the rear brake is just superior, it's just better. because you're able to concentrate fully on the handlebars, on the direction of the motorcycle. Let's get in front of this little car here. Oh, I say that's a Volkswagen Golf, isn't it? Or a Polo. Alright, I'm going to try and swap lanes here because... yeah, swap lanes here. There we go. That worked. I want to get in front of this Mercedes because I don't know what they're doing, but they don't seem all that competent. I was going to say confident, but I think competent is a better word. 24-year-old brakes, guys. 24-year-old motorcycle brakes. And it performs pretty well. Now, you can't say the same for drum brakes. I'm pretty sure that drum brakes on the rear is a thing of the past now, even with Chinese bikes, more modern Chinese motorcycles. But my first ever 125cc bike from, I think it was registered in 2007, it had a drum brake on the rear. Alright, so I'm going to stipulate this, or asterisk this, with that drum brakes don't perform anywhere near as well as disc brakes, because they kind of give you a bit more of a feeling of all or nothing, 100% braking or no braking whatsoever. But I tell you what, the engine braking really does help slow the bike down with the rear brake. But yeah, drum brakes, I don't know, I've never experienced a good drum brake before. That's why nothing has them anymore, because they're a bit shat. Again, rear brake, not bad, not bad. Might do a little 100% rear brake again. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Yeah, it just locks up. Yeah, but the thing is, like, because I got the I'm using the front brake there. Oops. Okay, I had to use the front brake there. All right, okay, there you go. You can hear the little squeal. So, I think concluding this video here, the rear brake can slow you down in normal riding conditions. All right, so you're not trying to go quickly anywhere, you're not trying to go fast anywhere. All right, because even just then, where I needed to brake fairly suddenly, the rear brake wasn't doing it for me. I had to use the front brake in that instance right there. So that's the problem with the rear brake. It doesn't give you enough room for error, you know? That's the biggest issue that I've got with it. It doesn't give you enough room for error when you are trying to stop a little bit more suddenly. Because again, the whole weight transfer is moving forward. So the harder you brake, the less grip you're going to have on the rear tire to slow yourself down. So that is my conclusion for this. Braking can be done, but any kind of error in judgment that you make and you've got to slow yourself down to correct yourself, it won't work. It won't work. All right. So yeah, guys and gals, I mean, I thought this was going to be a really interesting experiment, and to be honest, the rear brake on this motorcycle has actually performed better than I anticipated. So pretty happy with the result. So don't be afraid to use the rear brake on a motorcycle, but just remember that under heavy braking, under hard braking, you haven't got a choice. You have to use your front brake, almost all of it, all of what your front brake has to offer. All right, but just riding around like this isn't giving me any trouble whatsoever. So it is doable when you're riding nice and slowly. It's certainly doable, but for everything else, guys and gals, please use your front brake more. All right, whatever you do, use your front brake whenever you're braking hard. Get into that habit of using that front brake. It will save your bacon, trust me, because then you're not running the risk of locking up the rear, losing control of the rear end of the bike. And yeah, it's just going to make your life a hell of a lot harder. All right, so yeah, because there were a few comments on the braking video that I made, gosh, it was a few weeks ago now. And yeah, so some people mentioned about the whole rear brake thing. So I'm hoping that this is kind of clarified why I focus on the front brake in that video, because the front brake is doing the vast majority of the braking. 90 to 100% of your braking is being done by the front brakes. All right, don't kid yourselves, right? Because you might get some CVT instructors that will try to tell you something different. Well, you tell them to put on 30% rear brake under hard braking. It's impossible. Totally impossible. But anyway, thank you ever so much for joining me all the way to the end of today's video, guys and gals. Let's see if we can get a like goal here. Let's see if we can get to 50 likes on this video. Really appreciate it if you guys can make that happen. Helps us out an awful lot. But yeah, thanks again. Take care, ride safe, smash that subscribe button, and we will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.